The rich, deep scent of turned soil still clung to Walter's worn flannel shirt. A familiar comfort. It mingled with the sweet, dry perfume of stored hay from the barn, a scent of summers past. Does that particular aroma of earth and sunshine ever truly leave your memory, even after decades? That morning, a faint wisp of wood smoke curled from the chimney, joining the symphony of smells. It was the smell of the Briggs farm, a fragrance woven into the very fabric of his 70 years, a scent that would someday fade from the fields, but never from the deepest corners of his heart. This was rural Vermont in 1963, a place where time seemed to move with the rhythm of seasons. The quiet hills cradled a way of life that felt both ancient and, unknowingly, on the cusp of change. There was a gentle, enduring peace to those green valleys, a feeling of steadfast permanence. It was a world shaped by hardworking hands and the unwavering promise of each unfolding spring. Walter Briggs rose before the first hint of dawn, his movements practiced and deliberate after many years. His calloused fingers found the familiar handle of the enamel coffee pot in the kitchen's soft glow. He poured a steaming cup, adding a generous splash of fresh milk from yesterday's milking. As always, outside, the pre-dawn quiet was broken only by the distant lowing of a cow and a rustling breeze. He walked to the window, watching the eastern sky slowly lighten over the silhouette of the barn. Walter traced a finger along the frosty pane, remembering similar mornings from his own childhood. Do you recall the stillness of those early hours? Before the world fully awakened around you each day, he pulled on his sturdy work boots, their leather softened and molded perfectly to his feet over time. Then Walter reached for his well-worn denim jacket, slinging it over one shoulder with ease. He stepped onto the porch, breathing in the crisp, cool air, tasting the promise of a clear day. His gaze swept across the fields, noting the dew-kissed grass, the rows of young corn shoots. Walter observed the faint tracks of a deer near the old stone wall, a nightly visitor to his land. He often wondered what stories those silent creatures could tell about the passing generations. A slight frown creased his brow as he checked the barometer hanging by the kitchen door. The needle had barely shifted, suggesting fair weather, which was a blessing for the planting season. He thought of his grandfather, Elias, who could predict rain simply by the ache in his old knee. Walter took a slow sip of coffee, its warmth spreading a comfortable feeling through his chest. He then picked up a small, weathered ledger from the kitchen table, his daily ritual. His eyes scanned the neat columns of figures, noting yesterday's milk yield and feed costs carefully. Each entry was a small piece of his farm's ongoing story, written in his steady hand. The farmhouse itself stood proud and strong, built from local timber over 100 years ago. Its clapboard siding was painted a soft, weathered white, a beacon against the green Vermont landscape. Inside, the rooms smelled faintly of wood smoke, old books, and the lingering aroma of fresh-baked bread. The kitchen, with its big cast-iron stove, was the heart of the home, always warm and inviting. Have you ever known a kitchen that felt like the true gathering place, where all life's moments unfolded? Walter walked through the quiet living room, past the mantelpiece displaying generations of family photographs. He paused at the window, overlooking the gravel lane, watching for the first signs of neighborly movement. The lane, deeply rutted in places, led down to the main Route 9, a dusty ribbon in dry months. Route 9 was more of a country road then, carrying perhaps 20 cars an hour on a busy day. His nearest neighbor, old Mrs. Henderson, lived a good mile down the road. Past the maple grove, Walter imagined her now, likely already tending her small flock of chickens, just as he was. He heard the distinctive squeak of the barn door as he approached, a sound unchanged for decades. The barn, a massive timber structure, housed the dairy herd, their gentle breathing a constant presence. He checked on the calves, their soft eyes blinking curiously as he offered a handful of sweet hay. A good farmer always knows his animals, understanding their unique personalities and subtle needs. Walter moved among the milking cows, a comforting presence, speaking to them in low, familiar tones. He fastened the milking machine to the first cow, its rhythmic hum filling the morning air. The warm, frothy milk flowed into the large, stainless steel bulk tank, a satisfying sight. He remembered when they milked by hand, a much slower and more back-breaking task for everyone. His father, Thomas, used to joke that his arms had grown stronger than any blacksmith's from milking. Do you remember the simple satisfaction of hard work done well and the tangible results it produced? After the milking, Walter carefully cleaned the equipment, ensuring everything was spotless for tomorrow. He then carried fresh water to the chicken coop, watching the hens scratch eagerly in the dirt. He collected the day's eggs, warm and smooth in his hands, each one a perfect, fragile oval. Walter placed them gently into a wire basket, ready for breakfast, or perhaps for Mrs. Henderson. Back in the house, he prepared a simple breakfast of scrambled eggs, bacon, and homemade toast. He spread apple butter, made from their own orchard apples last autumn, generously on the warm bread. The sun was now fully up, casting long shadows across the dew-sparkled fields outside his kitchen window. He could hear the distant chirping of sparrows and the buzz of an early bee exploring the clover. Walter often found himself lost in thought during these quiet meals, reflecting on the farm's long history. The land had been in the Briggs family for 3 generations, a legacy passed down with great care. His grandfather Elias had bought the original 200 acres back in 1885. Elias built the first barn, a testament to his vision and his unwavering determination to thrive. Every fence post, every stone wall, every furrow in the fields held a story of their effort. Walter felt the weight of that history, a comforting presence guiding his every decision on the farm. He considered the changing seasons, the cycles of planting and harvest, mirroring life itself. A farmer learns patience from the land, understanding that some things simply cannot be rushed. He finished his coffee, standing by the window once more, planning the day's tasks in his mind. There was always something to fix, something to mend, something to tend to on a working farm. It was a never-ending dance of challenges and small triumphs, each day bringing its own rhythm. Walter remembered his mother, Clara, humming old hymns as she baked bread in that very kitchen. Her hands were always busy, kneading dough or mending clothes, always moving, with gentle purpose. His father, Thomas, was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes about his strong character. Thomas taught Walter how to read the clouds, how to know when to plant and when to harvest. He often thought of his younger brother, Arthur, who had left the farm for the city many years ago. Arthur found work in a factory in Burlington, a different kind of life, far from the soil. Walter wondered if Arthur ever missed the smell of the earth or the quiet solitude of the fields. Do you have a family member who chose a path so different from your own, yet always remained close? Their childhood games in the hayloft, the whispered secrets under the old maple tree, felt like yesterday. Neighbors were more than just people living nearby. They were extensions of your own family here. The Johnsons, down the valley, would always lend a hand during haying season, no questions asked. Mrs. Henderson often brought over her prize-winning berry pies, a welcome treat after a long day. Walter recalled the annual church picnic, where everyone gathered, sharing food and laughter under the summer sun. He remembered the lively square dances in the Grange Hall, the fiddles playing late into the night. Those were simpler times, perhaps, when community ties felt stronger than any steel cable. Friendship wasn't just about shared enjoyment. It was about mutual reliance, a quiet understanding. Dr. Peterson, the town doctor, would drive 20 miles in a snowstorm to tend to a sick child. Mr. O'Malley, the general store owner, knew everyone's order by heart and always had a kind word. Walter thought of the old-timers, sitting on benches outside the store, swapping stories and wisdom. They understood the land, the weather, and the unspoken language of a Vermont winter. Life on the farm was hard work, yes, but it was also filled with countless moments of deep connection. It was a life woven into the fabric of the community, like threads in a sturdy, comforting quilt. Each passing year brought new challenges, new technologies, but the core values remained steadfast. The Briggs farm was a testament to that endurance, a quiet stronghold against the ever-changing world. It was a place where generations had lived and loved, nurturing both the land and each other. As Walter finished his breakfast, the day's light fully illuminated the fields stretching out before him. The sun warmed the old kitchen, promising a good day for working the soil and mending fences. He knew there was much to do, a lifetime of small tasks that made up the larger purpose. The story of the farm and his place within it was still unfolding with each passing moment. And today, like all days, began with the quiet certainty of dawn over the Vermont hills. Walter Briggs often recalled his first clear memories of the farm, a place always feeling warm, safe, and eternally familiar. The old wooden farmhouse stood as the heart of his family, where every single story and all their lives truly began. The distinct sounds and particular smells of rural Vermont always enveloped him, shaping his world from the very start. Do you remember those particular smells that defined your own childhood? Perhaps a scent long vanished from the modern air. One of his earliest, most vivid memories centered on the annual maple sugaring, a harbinger of spring's slow arrival. The harsh, long winter slowly began to melt away, revealing patches of damp earth beneath the thinning snow cover. His father would check the temperature each morning with a quiet, knowing anticipation, waiting for nature's signal. It was his father who truly taught young Walter how to read the subtle, ancient signs of the land around them. When the days turned warm and the nights still held a crisp, cold bite, that was the perfect moment. They would begin tapping the ancient maple trees, an annual ritual deeply ingrained in their farm's long history. Young Walter was only 5 years old then, but he felt profoundly important in his very small, earnest way. He would carry the smaller, galvanized metal buckets, feeling quite heavy for his young, earnest hands. The distinct plink-plonk of sap dripping into the galvanized bucket was a sweet, reassuring song of the changing season. Not everyone knows that particular sound, a private, patient melody of the awakening Vermont forest. He trudged alongside his father through the rows of trees, each small step sinking deep into the melting snow. The old stone boat, pulled by their steady, patient horse, would slowly collect the precious, clear sap. The scent of pine needles and melting snow mingled in the crisp, clean air, filling his young lungs. Do you still remember the bracing chill of early spring air? That particular feeling on your own skin? The overflowing buckets were then carefully poured into larger barrels, situated on the sturdy stone boat. Afterward, they would haul them back to the sugar house, a small, rustic wooden shack nestled among the trees. Inside, the roaring fire burned fiercely beneath the enormous, shallow evaporating pans, generating immense heat. Sweet, thick steam billowed up, quickly fogging the small, grimy windows of the cozy sugar house. That specific aroma was something truly unique, found only in an active, steaming Vermont sugar house. His father would carefully skim the foam from the surface of the rapidly boiling sap, a practiced, precise movement. The intense heat and the sticky humidity made the air inside the small building feel remarkably thick and heavy. He remembered his grandfather also being there, sitting quietly on an old log, a gentle smile on his weathered face. Grandpa didn't speak many words, but his steady, quiet presence was a comforting, solid anchor for Walter. Old stories and soft chuckles drifted amidst the constant, comforting gurgle of the vigorously boiling sap. With each passing hour, the clear sap would thicken, slowly transforming into the precious, golden maple syrup. It was a miraculous transformation, like alchemy happening right before his very young, watching eyes. Have you ever felt such a slow, wondrous transformation in your own life? Something truly profound When the syrup reached its perfect, amber consistency, his father would carefully draw it off the pans. Steam still rose. But now, it carried a much richer, deeper, more concentrated aroma of pure sweetness. Young Walter was allowed a small taste of the warm, fresh syrup, usually drizzled right onto clean white snow. The sweet, melting sensation in his mouth was a simple, profound joy, one he still remembered clearly. No candy in the whole wide world could ever compare to that unique, freshly made, golden taste. He clearly recalled his father's smiling, proud face as Walter tasted the precious, warm, liquid gold. The deep satisfaction of a hard day's honest work permeated the very air. A quiet, shared contentment. They would then can the syrup into old tin cans, carefully labeling each one by hand with pride. Grandpa's old Ford Model A truck often sat parked just outside the sugar house, patiently waiting. Its sputtering engine, though old and well used, was a familiar, comforting sound echoing through the forest. Do you remember those old vehicles? Their engines having a distinct, memorable sound, all their own. Young Walter would help carry the heavy sealed cans of syrup out to the waiting old farm truck. Each can represented the honest hard work and the generous bounty provided by their resilient land. As twilight gently settled, the air would grow colder once more, hinting at the night's frost. The glow from the sugar house became a warm, inviting beacon in the growing, encompassing darkness. The soft chirping of night crickets began, a familiar, soothing rural chorus that marked the evening. Walter often carried a small, sun-dried piece of firewood, tucked securely in his small, sleepy arms. The comforting scent of wood smoke and maple syrup lingered pleasantly on his small, well-worn clothes. It was a sure sign of a day well spent, a feeling of deep, quiet contentment settling within him. Back at the farmhouse, his mother would have a hearty, warm, and delicious supper, waiting patiently. The comforting scent of baking bread and savory stew filled the cozy, warm, and inviting farmhouse kitchen. Do you remember those comforting family meals after a long, productive day shared with loved ones? He would often help set the table, carefully placing the heavy, old, patterned ceramic plates. Each evening, he listened attentively to the quiet stories of the day's events. Recounted simply, his father would speak of the best maple trees and their generous yield, a testament to nature's bounty. Grandpa would add his wise observations, sometimes just a quiet, knowing sigh of contentment. These were the moments Walter felt himself part of something vast, ancient, and deeply enduring. He was a living link in a long chain of generations, an aspiring, fledgling farmer himself. His grandfather often said, "The land will give you back what you truly give to it, young man." Each night, he drifted off to sleep with the comforting, familiar sounds of the farm surrounding him. The soft whistle of wind through the small cracks of the old, drafty window panes was his lullaby. The distant lowing of cows and the hoot of an owl from the nearby, quiet, moonlit forest. Do you recall the specific sounds of night in the place where you grew up? Perhaps a sound now gone, these simple, cherished memories were woven into the very fabric of his earliest formative years. They shaped his understanding of the world and his particular, important place within its grand design. Each passing season brought its own distinctive tasks and its unique, simple, honest joys. But the maple sugaring season always remained one of his absolute most cherished and favorite parts. The bracing chill of March, the quiet promise of new life stirring beneath the thawing, ancient earth. He remembered times his father would lift him up so he could peer into the bubbling, steaming pans, the dancing bubbles on the golden surface, shimmering like liquid treasure, captivating his young eyes. His father would often say, "Every single drop of sap is a story from the maple tree itself." Walter learned patience and a deep, abiding respect for nature from those early foundational days. He learned the true value of honest, hard work and the profound beauty in life's simple, quiet rhythms. There wasn't much money, but there was an abundance of love and simple, daily, unwavering joy. Every single spring, the cycle of life would begin anew on their cherished, three-generation family farm. The birdsong would return, a joyful chorus, and the trees would slowly begin to show new, tender buds. The smell of damp earth and sweet maple sap was the very perfume of his early, cherished childhood. Do you have a particular scent that instantly transports you back to your own earliest formative years? Those long, steamy days in the sugar house taught him about the true meaning of family, working together. They were not merely relatives, but true companions in the shared, enduring journey of their farm life. His father would ruffle his hair, a simple gesture filled with profound, unspoken, and everlasting love. Grandpa would offer a knowing, mischievous wink, a silent secret shared between them. Unspoken. These small moments, seemingly insignificant, truly built the very man he eventually became. Brick by brick, the sugar house still stood, a quiet, enduring monument to those cherished, sweet, and distant memories. Its wooden walls had weathered and silvered with time, but its warm, sweet spirit lingered on. Every scratch, every burn mark, each imperfection whispered a quiet, unassuming story of lives lived. It was a place of honest labor, patient perseverance, and simple, unadorned, pure, everyday joy. He remembered those crisp, cold, early mornings filled with the quiet, potent promise of a new day. There was no hurry in those days, only the natural, unhurried rhythm of the farm's enduring life. He often wondered if that particular, gentle rhythm still existed anywhere in the busy world today. He remembered the warm, golden light inside the sugar house during those long, quiet, peaceful evenings. It was a light that spoke of diligent effort and the quiet, deep, enduring happiness found in purpose. Every single drop of that precious maple syrup was a tangible piece of his long, cherished family history. They were his very first foundational memories of what the farm truly meant to his young heart, a place that nourished not only the physical body, but also gently nurtured his developing, hopeful soul. Those long, sweet maple sugaring nights taught him all those profound, unspoken, lasting lessons. They were his steadfast companions on his long, winding, and often challenging journey through life, and those memories still remain strong, much like the enduring, sweet taste of an early Vermont spring, a comforting, warm, and gentle solace as he slowly drifted off to a peaceful, well-earned sleep. Walter Briggs awoke each crisp morning before the sun, a habit ingrained deeply from his earliest childhood days on the farm. The rooster's boisterous crowing would shatter the quiet stillness of the pre-dawn air, signaling another full day. He quickly dressed in his worn overalls and sturdy work boots, ready for the never-ending farm tasks. His mother, even in later years, always had a hot breakfast waiting, a comforting start to every demanding day. Milking the dairy herd was the first substantial chore, a rhythmic routine performed twice daily without fail. Do you remember the distinct, earthy aroma of fresh hay and rich manure clinging to the barn air? Afterward, he fed the pigs and chickens, then checked the fences and various other outbuildings on the property. Breakfast was a quiet family affair, a rare moment of shared calm before the day's serious labors commenced. His father always read the local newspaper at breakfast, occasionally grunting out important weather forecasts. Only the gentle clinking of cutlery and murmured conversations would fill the comfortable, familiar kitchen space. Do you remember the hushed morning stories or shared plans that began your own childhood days? Then the fields called him outside, requiring attention to crops or the maintenance of essential farm equipment. Summers were for haying, arduous days spent beneath the generous sun, bringing in the harvest. The sweet, earthy scent of freshly cut hay would linger pleasantly on the breeze for hours. It was backbreaking labor, certainly, but deeply satisfying work that sustained the entire family. Lunch was usually a simple, quick affair, often eaten right there in the fields or by the barn. Sometimes his wife, Martha, would bring out sandwiches and lemonade, a welcome midday reprieve. The afternoons continued with various tasks, from mending fences to repairing machinery or tending the garden. A true Vermont farmer needed to be a jack of all trades, capable of fixing nearly anything with ingenuity. Do you remember the quiet satisfaction of a job well done, of physical effort yielding tangible results? Dusk brought the day's end, with the final milking and securing of the livestock for the coming night. Dinner was the main meal, with the entire family gathered around the big, sturdy kitchen table. The food typically came from their own land. Fresh vegetables and meats, wholesome and nourishing. His grandmother, even in her 90s, always insisted on making a generous, sweet dessert for everyone. After the meal, the atmosphere would settle into a more relaxed and reflective evening rhythm. The radio often played during the evenings, bringing news and musical programs into their humble home. The clear, authoritative voice of Edward R. Murrow would sometimes fill the living room with global events. Do you remember the popular tunes and captivating stories that floated from your own family's radio? The black and white television was a relatively recent addition, a fascinating new window to the world. The whole family would gather, mesmerized by shows like Bonanza or the exciting Ed Sullivan Variety Hour. The flickering, ghostly images on the small screen seemed nothing short of pure magic back then. Sometimes, Walter and Martha would simply read by the fire or engage in quiet, comforting conversation. The warm, dancing glow from the fireplace would cast long, gentle shadows across the familiar room. Weekly, Walter would drive his trusty Ford pickup into town, a journey down gravel roads. The main street was the bustling hub of all activity, a place for errands and friendly greetings. Do you remember the comforting familiarity of your own small town, where everyone knew your name? The general store was always the first stop, a treasure trove of necessities and local gossip. The mingled scents of roasted coffee, penny candy, and dry goods filled the air delightfully. He often bought a small bag of butterscotch candies for Martha, a sweet, thoughtful, weekly gesture. The local diner was another essential stop, a bustling place filled with familiar faces and lively chatter. Hot coffee and warm apple pie were standard orders, comforting staples after a long morning of chores. Do you remember the easy camaraderie and shared stories exchanged over a cup of coffee at your local diner? The barber shop was the unofficial town hall, where all the important local news and gossip circulated freely. The comforting scent of shaving cream and lavender tonic always filled the air, a pleasant, clean aroma. He would settle into the worn leather chair, relaxing as the barber wielded his sharp, steady razor. Conversations drifted from crop prospects to the unpredictable Vermont weather, common topics among farmers. Life in rural Vermont was simple, grounded in the land and the rhythms of nature's gentle unfolding. Each season brought its own unique set of tasks and its own quiet, particular kind of beauty. Spring was a time of hopeful anticipation, of preparing the soil for the promise of new seeds. Do you remember the feeling of renewal and fresh possibility that arrived with the first warm days of spring? Summer meant long, sun-drenched days filled with diligent work and the hum of insects. It also brought cool evenings on the porch, watching fireflies dance against the darkening sky. Autumn painted the hillsides with brilliant hues, the fiery reds and oranges of maple leaves. It was a time for harvesting apples and pumpkins, preparing the larder for the approaching winter months. Winter blanketed everything in a pristine, silent layer of soft, shimmering snow, transforming the landscape. It was a quieter time for mending tools, telling stories, and planning for the next busy year. His grandmother always had the most enchanting stories, tales of old Vermont winters by the fireplace. Do you remember the cozy feeling of being safe indoors, listening to the wind howl outside? Life on the farm was a continuous, unbroken cycle, passed down through 3 generations of Briggses. It was a legacy, a deep part of his very being, woven into his character like the threads of an old quilt. Every scar on his calloused hands told a story, a testament to years of honest, diligent labor. Walter knew every single inch of this land, its secrets and its rhythms. From years of observation, he could read the weather in the changing winds and the shifting patterns of the clouds above. A true farmer possessed an intuitive understanding, a sixth sense for the land and its needs. Do you feel a deep, unbreakable connection to a particular place that shaped your own life story? The farm was more than just a place of work. It was a living, breathing entity, a member of the family. It had witnessed births, deaths, and countless quiet celebrations through the passing years. Every ancient oak tree on the property held a story within its gnarled, enduring branches. The laughter of children had once echoed across these very fields, carried on the gentle breeze. Summer nights brought the soothing symphony of crickets and frogs, a natural lullaby for sleeping. The light of a full moon would often illuminate the winding dirt path leading up to the old farmhouse. Do you remember the particular sounds of a quiet country night? So different from city life, the cheerful chirping of countless birds would awaken him each new morning. A gentle, natural alarm. The fluffy white clouds drifted lazily across the wide blue sky, above the undulating green hills. The air always felt clean and crisp, carrying the fresh scent of pine and damp earth. He felt truly blessed to live amidst such enduring beauty, a constant source of quiet inspiration. Each day was a gift, an opportunity to work the land and contribute to the family's well-being. Life was certainly not always easy, presenting its own particular array of challenges and difficulties. Harsh weather often brought significant trials, testing their resolve and ingenuity severely. Do you remember the formidable blizzards that would trap you indoors, piling snow high against the windows? But they always persevered, facing adversity with a quiet strength and unwavering determination. That was the way of the Vermont farmer, enduring through hardship with a steady, humble spirit. He had never truly contemplated leaving the farm. It simply was his place in the world. His entire existence was intrinsically linked to the land's enduring cycle. A comforting, familiar pattern. Memories of his father working these same fields were always present, like a gentle, guiding hand. And memories of his mother humming softly in the kitchen, preparing their meals with loving care. Do you remember the significant people whose quiet actions shaped the person you are today? Every stone, every tree on this property was intimately familiar to him. A silent, cherished companion. He had watched the sun rise thousands of times over these very hills, each dawn a fresh canvas. And he had seen the sun set just as many times, painting the sky with fiery, fading colors. Life was a grand, unfolding canvas, painted slowly and deliberately with each passing day and season. He had lived a simple life, a full life, rooted deeply in the rich, forgiving Vermont earth. And now, those familiar days were gently drawing to their quiet, inevitable close. Like a fading melody, he looked out the window at the familiar landscape, a lifetime held within that single gaze. The air felt cool, carrying the faint whisper of the evening wind through the rustling leaves. A solitary owl began its evening call, a soft hooting sound drifting across the quiet fields. It was time for rest now. After the long, full day, a welcome respite from the world's demands. The stars were beginning to pepper the vast, inky canvas of the darkening Vermont night sky. A profound stillness settled over the old farm, a blanket of peace embracing all things. He closed his eyes then, another day gently folded away, another memory added to the quiet collection. Walter remembered a time when every family on their stretch of Route 9 was like an extension of his very own kin. They knew each other by name, understood life's quiet struggles, and often shared the burdens of daily living. Laughter often echoed across the peaceful valleys, creating a comforting and very familiar rhythm for everyone. Do you recall those deeply comforting days when belonging felt as natural as the very air you breathed? The small white village church stood as a true community anchor, a gathering place for news and quiet reflection. Sunday services were certainly occasions for donning your finest clothes, a treasured tradition for all the families. Afterward, folks always lingered outside, sharing warm stories and often delicious homemade potluck dishes. Every bite tasted richly of genuine friendship and the simple, comforting satisfaction of true community sharing. The county fair was definitely the highlight of summer, an eagerly anticipated event for every single person. The sweet smell of popcorn and cotton candy mingled with the happy sounds of laughter and distant music. Prized livestock were displayed with immense pride by their farmers, a testament to hard work and dedication. Do you remember that special thrill of anticipation, waiting for the blue ribbon results at the annual fair? Local festivals brought forth traditional square dances and lively fiddle music, filling the community hall with joy. Everyone joined in the spirited dancing, letting go of daily worries and embracing the simple, shared pleasure. Colorful paper lanterns glowed softly, illuminating the warm evenings and creating a truly magical atmosphere. Their intertwined lives were like a carefully woven quilt, each patch distinct but indispensable to the whole warmth. Miss Eleanor, Walter's second-grade teacher, always had a special twinkle in her kind and observant blue eyes. She taught more than just reading and writing. She instilled kindness and a deep, genuine curiosity for the world. Her gentle, encouraging voice still echoed softly within Walter's mind, a comforting memory from long ago. Do you remember a particular teacher whose gentle wisdom truly left an indelible mark upon your youthful heart? Miss Eleanor often organized storytelling sessions beneath the shade of the ancient, sprawling oak tree by the school. Fairy tales and tales of grand adventure opened up vast new worlds for all the eager, imaginative young minds. She believed that every single child possessed a unique story waiting patiently to be lovingly discovered and told. Many folks knew the exact day to plant their potatoes by listening for the peeper frog's very first springtime chorus. Old Man Hemlock, their quiet, thoughtful neighbor, was a veritable treasure trove of local history and farming wisdom. He had lived upon that very same patch of Vermont earth for more than 80 long and industrious years. His tales of the past were always filled with vivid details, bringing history vividly to life for young Walter. Did you have an elderly mentor who shared their life's rich tapestry of stories, offering gentle guidance and insight? Old Man Hemlock could predict the coming weather simply by observing the specific shapes of the clouds. He taught Walter how to read nature's subtle signs, revealing the quiet, enduring secrets of the fertile land. His seasoned advice was more precious and insightful than any agricultural book Walter had ever encountered. Their lives were woven from resilient threads of shared experience, enduring tradition, and deep-seated community bonds. Mr. Henderson's general store served as both a bustling marketplace and a vital, informal gathering spot. The comforting aromas of roasted coffee, bar soap, and sweet penny candy always lingered delightfully in the air. Mr. Henderson, with his impressive, neatly trimmed mustache, knew every single one of his loyal customers by name. Do you remember a beloved local shop where you always felt truly seen and welcomed? Almost like family, it was the perfect place to exchange local news, catching up on all the very latest happenings around town. A promise made with a handshake, there was always considered more binding than any formal contract ever signed. Mr. Henderson often allowed young Walter to borrow books from a small, dusty shelf tucked away behind his counter. Those well-thumbed pages offered quiet adventures and imparted knowledge, shaping Walter's curious, young mind. Friendships were carefully nurtured over warm cups of coffee and long, comforting conversations by the glowing fireplace. Long winter evenings became much warmer and brighter because of this deep, enduring sense of shared companionship. Mrs. Briggs' kitchen always smelled wonderfully of freshly baked bread and simmering, hearty vegetable soup. Do you recall those deeply comforting family meals that nourished not only your body, but also your very soul? Potluck dinners were a cherished tradition, with every single dish telling its own unique, delicious story. By 1963, Walter could sense a subtle, quiet shift happening in the very air around them. Younger folks were slowly starting to move away, seeking new opportunities in different, distant places. Neighboring fields, once bustling with activity, sometimes seemed a little emptier than in years past. The change was gradual, unfolding slowly, much like the gentle, almost imperceptible fading of autumn colors. Town meetings still occurred, but the familiar faces gathered there seemed fewer in number each passing year. Walter sometimes gazed out his window, remembering the vibrant, bustling days of his own youth. The well-trodden paths had witnessed countless footsteps, each leaving their own distinct, silent story. Farmers truly knew the best time to cut hay, often during a long, dry afternoon when the sun was strong. He remembered the happy sounds of children playing gleefully in the neighbor's sun-drenched green yard. Distant calls carried simple invitations for a visit, a warm offer of shared companionship and comfort. Each season brought its own special rituals, familiar tasks that connected them deeply to the land. Do you recall those distinct, comforting scents that marked the passage of each cherished season in your memory? Jack-o'-lanterns glowed warmly, casting an eerie light on the mysterious, crisp Halloween nights. Thanksgiving gatherings were always filled with warm laughter and heartfelt expressions of deep gratitude. Christmas brought carols sung sweetly and simple, thoughtful gifts exchanged with true affection and care. Their lives flowed like a gentle river, seemingly quiet and unassuming, yet profoundly deep and ever-present. Mr. Henderson had since retired, and his diligent son now managed the familiar general store. The store remained open for business, but the once vibrant atmosphere felt subtly different, a little quieter. The easy conversations by the counter were not quite as lively, nor as frequent as they once had been. Have you ever noticed how tiny, seemingly insignificant changes can sometimes carry such profound, lasting meaning? New neighbors occasionally moved in, but they often were not farmers, unfamiliar with the old ways. They offered polite greetings, but the deep-seated familiarity that Walter cherished was noticeably absent. Walter still held on to his old connections, but they became fewer and further between with each passing season. Vermont farmers often knew each other through the lively cattle auctions or the bustling annual county fairs. Telephone calls gradually replaced the spontaneous, unexpected visits that once filled their days with joy. Handwritten letters, once a common sight, now carried long-awaited news from distant, scattered loved ones. Memories of their close-knit community were like glowing embers, providing warmth within Walter's quiet heart. The worn ruts on the dirt road outside were a testament to countless journeys, both big and small. Walter remembered how they all pulled together, helping each other through the harshest, snowiest Vermont winters. Snow shoveling, shared firewood, and warm, hearty meals were often delivered to those in need. The hoot of an owl in the quiet darkness brought a comforting sense of the familiar, a natural lullaby. The whisper of the wind through the old pine trees seemed to carry forgotten stories from generations past. Do you ever listen closely to the quiet whispers of nature and feel its ancient, untold stories unfolding? The Briggs family had lived and worked upon this very land for 3 enduring generations. Each generation carefully built upon the last, adding new layers of cherished memories and rich traditions. The old stone well still provided cool, clear water, a steadfast and unchanging presence on their farm. It was a constant, a quiet, reassuring presence that had witnessed countless sunrises and sunsets. Walter gazed out at the cornfield, where the stalks now towered far above a man's head. His diligent care had nourished both his family and this small, enduring Vermont community for so long. Sparrows still built their delicate nests within the eaves of the barn, just as they always had done. Maple leaves were beginning their vibrant transformation, signaling yet another season quietly passing by. The crisp, cool air carried the faint, comforting scent of wood smoke from distant, busy chimneys. Do you remember that subtle, anticipatory feeling when the seasons changed? Promising something new yet familiar, his beloved community had indeed transformed. But the cherished memories remained, steadfast and clear. They were like distant stars, always present in the vast, comforting expanse of the silent night sky. The gentle hum of crickets served as the familiar, soothing lullaby of the peaceful, quiet Vermont night. Walter closed his weary eyes, feeling the profound, comforting peace of his quiet, beloved home. Everything was silent, except for the soft, steady ticking of the old, reliable grandfather clock in the hall. That clock had quietly witnessed countless generations come and go, marking the passage of precious time. His dreams were now filled with familiar, kind faces and the gentle, comforting echoes of long-remembered smiles. His memory was a flowing river, constantly carrying precious treasures from the depths of his long life. Every single moment was a smooth, well-worn pebble, gently polished by the steady, unyielding hands of time. He drifted peacefully into slumber, his quiet heart filled with a deep, unspoken sense of lasting gratitude. The stories of his community would forever reside, vibrant and true, within the sacred chambers of his mind. They were his most precious legacy, far more valuable than any land or material possessions could ever be. Walter often remembered those crisp Vermont mornings when the scent of brewing coffee mingled with the fresh country air. The rising sun would cast long, golden streaks across the gently rolling, emerald green hills surrounding their homestead. He and Martha would share breakfast in the quiet kitchen, the distant, cheerful chirping of sparrows, a familiar morning chorus. Soon enough, the steady rumble of the tractor would begin, signaling the familiar rhythms of another day's honest labor. The cornfields grew taller than a man's head by midsummer, their green stalks rustling secrets in the gentle breezes. Walter would regularly walk the fence lines, mending any loose wire or broken post with practiced, careful hands. Do you remember the comforting sense of security that simple, enduring routines could bring to your own daily life? Sunday mornings brought the distant, clear chime of the church bell echoing across the serene, peaceful valley. Martha's apple pies, cooling on the windowsill, filled the entire farmhouse with their sweet, comforting aroma. His grandchildren would often chase fireflies in the twilight, their joyful laughter echoing through the large, old yard. Evenings found them gathered by the fireplace, quiet pages turning softly in the warm, inviting glow. It was a simple life, perhaps, but one filled with profound contentment and an abundance of quiet, deep warmth. Walter had always believed that these cherished routines would continue on, unchanging, for as long as he lived. The old church walls, built from sturdy local stone, had quietly witnessed generations come and go, unchanging. The seasons continued their steadfast, dependable cycle, each bringing its own unique beauty and specific set of tasks. They had tilled the soil and harvested its bounty, year after year, just as his father and grandfather before him had done. Only a true farmer understands that the land is not merely dirt, but a living, breathing entity demanding respect and care. Everything felt firmly rooted, possessing a natural order that seemed as enduring and reliable as the mountain peaks. Walter's world consisted of the barn, the fields, and the beloved faces of his family gathered around the supper table. It was a life of simple pleasures, truly, and Walter believed he needed nothing more to find profound satisfaction. Then one quiet evening, their youngest son, Robert, spoke up during their usual after-dinner conversation. He expressed a desire to explore opportunities beyond the familiar boundaries of their cherished family farm. A brief, almost imperceptible silence descended upon the cozy, lamplit living room, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Martha gently placed her teacup onto its saucer, making no sound at all. Her gaze fixed on her son, Walter felt a subtle, unfamiliar breeze blow through the very foundations of their steadfast, comfortable home. Robert yearned for something different, a fresh experience beyond the familiar rhythm of planting and harvesting. He had been quietly reading books about distant cities, places with towering buildings and bustling, unfamiliar streets. Can you recall the first time you truly contemplated a significant, life-altering choice for your own future path? Walter understood, deep down, that a young bird eventually needs to try its wings and fly far from its original nest. Still, the very notion left a tiny, almost imperceptible sting somewhere deep within his quiet, steady heart. Martha merely nodded, her quiet eyes reflecting a complex mixture of understanding, love, and subtle apprehension. They had always raised their children with a spirit of independence, encouraging them to follow their own true paths. Robert had always been the one with restless curiosity, often venturing further into the woods than his siblings. In the following days, a subtle, indefinable shift occurred in the quiet atmosphere of the comfortable farmhouse. It was a silent anticipation, unspoken, yet undeniably present, like a faint, persistent hum beneath the surface. Martha would often find herself gazing out the kitchen window, watching the empty road leading down from the house. Walter noticed Robert's usually boisterous laughter becoming somewhat quieter, more thoughtful during their mealtimes. Only parents truly understand the subtle flicker of worry that passes between them, a shared, silent language of concern. Finally, on a bright, early summer morning, Robert packed his modest belongings into a single, worn travel bag. He promised to write letters regularly and to call whenever he had the opportunity, reassuring his parents softly. There was a tight, lingering embrace, a quiet goodbye that echoed with both love and the promise of new beginnings. Then Robert drove away, his old Ford pickup kicking up a small cloud of dust as it disappeared down the long gravel driveway. His absence left a peculiar, almost palpable void in the familiar rhythm of the daily farm life and household. Walter and Martha continued their chores, striving to maintain the comforting normalcy that had always defined their days. However, every task, every shared meal, seemed to possess a subtly different, slightly altered hue now. The pauses in their conversations stretched a little longer, filled with unspoken thoughts and quiet, lingering questions. Martha kept a small, decorative wooden box on the mantelpiece, awaiting the arrival of Robert's first letter. Every afternoon, Walter would walk to the mailbox, a quiet, almost imperceptible spark of hope in his steady stride. Sometimes, he would linger there for a moment longer than necessary, gazing out at the quiet, expansive fields. Do you remember the particular, almost breathless feeling of waiting for important news that could alter your own world? At night, the persistent chirping of crickets outside seemed to take on a slightly more melancholic, distant tone. A farmer learns patience from the land itself, understanding that some things simply take their own unhurried, natural time. This waiting, however, felt different from waiting for rain or the ripening of a promising, abundant harvest. It carried a new kind of uncertainty, a delicate thread woven into the very fabric of their previously predictable existence. Martha would often sit knitting, but her needles clicked with a slightly slower, more deliberate, contemplative rhythm. Their supper table felt somehow incomplete, with one chair empty, one familiar voice conspicuously absent from the conversations. Walter often wondered if Robert was truly finding the contentment he sought in that bustling, distant, unfamiliar city. He missed Robert's cheerful whistling as he worked in the barn, a sound that always signaled youthful energy and vigor. Old photographs of Robert, from childhood to young adulthood, were taken out and quietly looked at more often. Each youthful face in the album held a treasure trove of memories, some joyful, some tinged with gentle wistfulness. One morning, Walter found a thick, promising envelope nestled amongst the usual bills inside their old metal mailbox. He held it carefully, feeling its unexpected weight, a tangible link to their beloved, faraway son. Returning to the house, Martha was already standing by the screen door, her expression a mixture of hope and quiet concern. They sat together at the kitchen table, unfurling the pages from Robert's careful, distinctive handwriting. Martha's voice was a little shaky as she read each line aloud, slowly, savoring every carefully chosen word. Robert had found a steady job in an auto mechanic's shop, learning new skills and meeting unfamiliar faces. He described the bustling city life, the endless stream of people, and the constant, exhilarating hum of activity. Do you remember when you received a letter that subtly shifted the course of your own expectations or plans? Toward the end of the letter, there was a paragraph that made them both pause, their eyes lingering on the words. Robert wrote that he was adjusting well, finding his place, and wouldn't be returning to the farm anytime soon. A quiet settling descended upon them, like soft, persistent snowflakes drifting gently onto the silent, waiting earth. It wasn't a calamitous event, but simply a gentle, undeniable shift in the established patterns of their family. Walter looked out the window at the same familiar landscape, which now seemed subtly different, somehow. Martha carefully folded the letter, placing it gently into the small wooden box on the mantelpiece, a quiet gesture. Acceptance arrived slowly, much like a gentle, persistent rain, gradually soaking into the parched, patient earth. They both knew, with a quiet certainty, that Robert had indeed found his own unique path. Far from the farm, each child is like a seed, carried by the wind to find its own fertile ground. Sometimes far from its origin, the farm wouldn't be exactly the same, of course, but it would always remain their cherished, unchanging home. Walter reached for Martha's hand, giving it a soft, reassuring squeeze, a shared understanding passing between them. They had given their son the precious gift of wings, allowing him the freedom to truly explore and grow. It was simply part of life's natural, unfolding process, a constant ebb and flow of presence and tender absence. Walter felt a new kind of quiet peace settling within him, an acceptance that wasn't resignation, but understanding. Do you recall a moment in your own life when you embraced a new reality, finding strength in its quiet certainty? A gentle, softer smile graced Martha's lips, a subtle expression of love for her son and their shared future. They had done what they believed was truly best for Robert, guided by the deep, abiding love of parents. The farm would continue, tended by the hands that remained, each familiar task performed with renewed purpose. The sun would still rise and set over the same familiar mountain peaks, casting its daily golden glow. Life on Route 9, with its quiet rhythm, would continue its steady, comforting, persistent journey onward. Walter understood that true parental love knew no geographical boundaries, reaching across any distance with steady strength. The farm, after all, would always be a welcoming place of quiet refuge, a steadfast haven for anyone returning. The next day, they returned to their accustomed routines, the familiar tasks providing a comforting sense of purpose. The steady rumble of Walter's tractor once again echoed across the sprawling, peaceful, sun-drenched fields. Martha hummed a soft, familiar tune as she kneaded dough for fresh bread, her movements rhythmic and practiced. Robert's presence was no longer a palpable absence, but a warm, cherished memory, a part of their collective story. Life, as Walter knew, consistently brings forth new beginnings and unexpected, often quiet, turns in the road, and they, with their enduring spirit, felt ready to embrace whatever gentle changes the future might yet hold. Winter would soon arrive, bringing its familiar chill and the promise of quiet, snow-covered, peaceful landscapes. The firewood was neatly stacked in the shed, ready to provide warmth against the encroaching, cold Vermont nights. The farm, their steadfast companion, stood strong against the elements, an enduring symbol of their deep-rooted life. And so, the quiet, persistent story of the last farm on Route 9 continued its gentle, reflective unfolding. Walter Briggs often looked back upon his life, finding a quiet simplicity and deep peace woven into the very fabric of the land. Life on the farm moved to a rhythm dictated by the changing seasons, a steady beat connected intimately to nature's ancient pulse. Each day brought its familiar chores, from the first pale light of dawn until the setting sun dipped low beyond the distant western hills. He remembered the profound satisfaction found in completing a long day's honest work beneath the vast expanse of the boundless open sky. Do you recall that quiet, deep joy of creating something substantial and lasting with your own two capable hands from start to finish? Walter was never a man of many words, yet his steady, consistent actions always conveyed so much more meaning than any elaborate speech. He held a steadfast belief in the enduring resilience of the land and the profound lessons it quietly taught each successive generation. A farmer's particular brand of steadfast perseverance was not merely a job. It truly represented a deeply ingrained philosophy for living. The many passing days on the farm often seemed quite simple and repetitive, yet they were undeniably filled with profound, quiet meaning. He could still taste the pure, wild sweetness of the golden honey he personally harvested from hidden, natural beehives in the woods. Walter Briggs had slowly learned that true patience was indeed the essential key, both for nurturing successful crops and for living a full life. He would often spend countless silent hours observing the slow, majestic drift of clouds above the deep blue Vermont mountain peaks. Much like the clear mountain stream flowing steadily through his property, life itself always finds its own unique, winding pathway. His wife, Sarah, remained the unwavering warm light through every season, consistently carrying a gentle, comforting smile on her face. She possessed a unique, comforting way of making even the coldest, most formidable winter days feel undeniably warmer and exceptionally cozy. Walter remembered her humming softly in the kitchen, an old familiar tune that he could still faintly recall in his mind's ear. A true Vermonter understood the secret to staying warm by meticulously drying their firewood and burning it cleanly in the old hearth. Sarah's homemade wild berry preserves remained a legendary sweet delight throughout the entire local Vermont countryside for many years. He often wondered if his children would ever truly discover that same profound, quiet sense of peace he cherished in their own lives. The ancient maple trees stood steadfast through countless harsh winters, still consistently yielding their precious, sweet, golden sap each spring. Walter had experienced the deep joy of a bountiful, successful harvest, and also the quiet disappointment of a meager, difficult one. Life on the farm teaches you to gracefully accept those things that simply cannot be changed with a tranquil, accepting spirit. Did you ever feel like you were truly a small part of something much grander and more eternally enduring than yourself? Perhaps. He had certainly witnessed many significant changes in his 70 years, but some fundamental things always remained beautifully unchanged. You can still distinctly hear the comforting, distant chime of the old church bell echoing across the serene valley every single Sunday morning. The sturdy old covered bridges still stand proudly, timeless monuments reaching back to a simpler, cherished era, now long since past. Those familiar, dependable ball canning jars are still diligently used by many homesteading families for preserving today, just like then. Walter never complained about his burdens. He simply continued quietly with his daily work, finding purpose in silent, steady effort. There was a profound comfort in truly knowing his honest efforts sustained both his beloved family and the generous, giving land itself. He remembered warm summer nights when fireflies gracefully danced above the golden, ripening barley fields under the gentle moonlight. The comforting scent of wood smoke drifting from a neighbor's distant chimney was always an indelible, essential part of the Vermont air. Walter had learned to read the subtle signs of changing weather patterns, like consulting a trusted and very old, wise friend. Every new morning brought with it a fresh promise, regardless of how challenging or demanding the previous day might have been. Do you remember those early, quiet mornings when the thick, soft mist still lovingly embraced the hidden, sleeping valleys below? The piercing cry of a lone hawk circling high overhead was its own unique, wild music to his calm and attentive ears. The farm was more than just land. It truly felt like a living, breathing entity, constantly inhaling and exhaling right alongside Walter. His brother, Thomas, often helped during the busiest seasons, always bringing laughter and robust, much-needed strength to the work. Walter remembered the many unspoken conversations they shared, understanding each other's thoughts with merely a quick, knowing glance. A true Vermont man knows how to mend almost anything with baling wire, a bit of duct tape, and a trusty, old, well-used hammer. That sense of profound peace came from gracefully accepting whatever life presented, both the good and the challenging times alike. Even the inevitable hardships became an integral, enriching part of the unfolding story, making it all the more deeply meaningful. The rich, earthy scent of decaying leaves and damp soil after a crisp autumn rain still brought a unique, comforting sense of solace. The farm had nurtured Walter and his entire family with its generous bounty and its demanding character-building challenges alike. He harbored no deep regrets about the choices he had made, even if they sometimes seemed a bit stubborn or unyielding to others. Did you ever feel the morning bird song as a personal, joyful welcome? A new blessing, arriving with each precious, dawning day. His greatest, purest joy was watching tiny, hopeful seeds slowly germinate and then bravely burst forth into vibrant, thriving life. Long winter afternoons by the warm wood stove, listening to the wind howl softly outside the window, brought true, quiet peace. Walter had slowly learned that true, lasting wealth resided in these simple, cherished moments of quiet contemplation and deep gratitude. Even the crisp, biting cold of a January morning still possessed its own unique, stark, and undeniably beautiful kind of quiet splendor. The farm had certainly changed and evolved over the many passing years, but its enduring, steadfast soul remained utterly unwavering. He remembered how his father patiently taught him to repair an old, stubborn tractor engine with methodical, unhurried precision. Vermonters have a wise saying, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it," embracing practical wisdom and careful, thoughtful resourcefulness. The distinct scent of engine oil, mixed with rich earth, could still transport him back to those vivid, cherished childhood memories. Walter realized that life was truly a beautiful succession of interconnected moments, each one inherently precious and deeply significant. Do you still keep those old, well-loved objects that hold countless unspoken stories and treasured memories from a cherished past? The indelible marks of those who came before still reside within every single stone of the meticulously built, dry-stacked wall. 50 years ago, he witnessed these very same enduring sights, and remarkably, they still stand proudly and beautifully today. The delicate fragrance of a single roadside wildflower could instantly evoke an entire, sun-drenched, carefree summer, now long since past. Peace was not an absence of challenging struggles, but rather the quiet ability to find profound stillness deep within oneself. Walter would often sit on the old farmhouse porch in the quiet evenings, listening to the incessant, rhythmic chirping of countless crickets. He contemplated the generations who had lovingly worked this very land before him with the exact same deep devotion and care. Each tiny seed, carefully sown, was a hopeful act of unwavering faith in a future that remained wonderfully uncertain and unknown. His son, George, possessed a similar deep love for the land, much like his own, which brought Walter immense, quiet comfort. Acceptance flows like a steady, gentle river through one's life, calmly carrying away all that has come to pass, both good and bad. Have you ever deeply felt that a particular place was truly an inseparable, living extension of your very own innermost self? The old, winding dirt roads still meandered gracefully through the rolling Vermont hills, beautifully unchanged by the passage of time. The gentle, rustling whisper of leaves in the breeze was a familiar, soothing lullaby of the peaceful, quiet Vermont countryside. Walter had learned to discover a profound, calming peace within the deep, comforting silence of the earliest morning hours. The old farmhouses, with their wide, inviting porches and many welcoming windows, still held countless untold, cherished stories. He remembered countless times sitting on the porch, peacefully watching the sun slowly descend behind the tall, distant tree line. That deep, inherent feeling of connection to both the enduring past and the unfolding future brought a comforting sense of peace, much like an old, reliable well, still drawing forth cool, fresh water. Cherished memories continue to nourish the weary soul. A Vermont farmer knows precisely when to plant and when to harvest for the most bountiful, successful crop yields. The golden wheat fields, shimmering brightly under the warm summer sun, were always a truly magnificent and breathtaking sight. Walter had lived a full, unburdened life, free from deep regrets, and ultimately found profound peace within its simple rhythm. Do you ever feel that tranquil peace that comes from embracing the natural, inevitable flow of time's ceaseless, steady current? He had meticulously carved a purposeful life directly from the generous land, a life that was undeniably authentic and truly precious. The silent promises of each fresh, new spring still carried an unchanging, gentle magic that warmed his steadfast, aging heart. Walter remembered the cheerful chorus of birdsong as he walked out to the fields in the quiet, cool, early morning. This farm was the very bone and sinew of his family, a deeply personal story meticulously written in generations of honest sweat. It was far more than mere property. It was a vibrant, living family tree, indelibly pressed into the very soul of the fertile earth. The sweet, earthy smell of ripe apples fallen beneath the old trees in autumn remained vividly fresh within his keen, aging mind. Walter Briggs understood that true, lasting peace was not merely the absence of life's inevitable, challenging struggles. It was instead the quiet, profound act of finding deep contentment within his own life, embracing all that it generously offered. Have you ever deeply felt that liberating sense of gentle relief that comes from truly accepting your life's own circumstances? The comforting aroma of a warm, hearty meal, cooking slowly on the old wood-burning stove, still sweetly lingered in his fond memory. He had slowly learned that every single moment possessed an inherent, quiet value, no matter how seemingly mundane or ordinary. Each weathered scar on his strong, calloused hands represented a silent story, a valuable lesson learned, and a cherished memory. Locals knew that Trout Brook, winding through his property, was always brimming with lively silver-scaled trout every single spring. Walter had learned to perceive profound beauty in places where many others might simply and easily overlook it entirely. Life on the farm had thoroughly taught him about the incredible, enduring resilience of the quiet, steadfast human spirit itself. He had lived a life of true harmony with the generous land, a life that felt authentically meaningful and deeply fulfilling. The crisp, clean scent of a cold winter morning, with its invigorating air and fresh pine, always brought a unique clarity. This quiet, abiding peace was his cherished legacy, lovingly passed down from one generation to the next, like a treasured heirloom. Did you ever feel truly a part of the vast, eternal cycle of life, ever flowing, ever changing, yet always beautifully constant? The rich, comforting scent of damp soil after a gentle spring rain was always a familiar, profound source of solace. It quietly reminded him of endless renewal and the constant promise of fresh, hopeful new beginnings, never truly ending. This particular, comforting fragrance had been with him since he was a small boy, and it thoughtfully remained with him still, a single scent speaking 1,000 silent stories of the long-gone past and of all the beautiful, peaceful things yet to come. He breathed deeply, feeling the damp earth's rich scent mingled with fresh, sharp pine carried on the cool Vermont air.